Okay, in this session we have a discussion on robotics, one of the first sessions we went to, about who's funding artificial intelligence, where that money is coming from, and who's being invited to the table to discuss where the future of AI is going and how they're integrating everything with robotics, some of the things that we saw with robotics. And then also there was a discussion on the model of education that they're looking at for the future and how they are looking to implement certain principles, ideas about identity, purpose, and direction in order to shape the philosophy of future students, and the way they're looking at it and how that is not really about education, it's about shaping the worldview of the future students. So I hope you find this segment to be informative. I just think it's important to recognize that when you're dealing with the people that they're looking to try and make sense of the world around them because they see the changes. And so you have someone like who comes up with those ideas, which are actually some good ideas.
Yeah, and there are good ideas. I mean, there's some pretty cool things that we're going to be learning during the course of this week. Mm-hmm. Some interesting takeaways, that's for sure. And then at the same time wrestling through, okay, what is that? What is the broader narrative, that broader trend that this is taking us down, that road, that trend road? Just a few things from the first talk, which was on who's funding the future. And again, all four of us went to that. The question arose, who's building the future? Well, whoever's building the future, whoever's funding it is the one who's building it. And I think the stat I heard, and maybe folks can correct me, that 70% of current capital funding now goes to AI development, startups, and AI operations. And that the big elephant in the room is infrastructure, the infrastructure needed for building AI, and that right now the most amount of capital in the world's history, in the history of the world, is being dedicated to one thing, AI and its infrastructure. Did I hear that right?
Yes, you did.
Because that's mind-blowing.
It is mind-blowing. And here's an interesting thing that another elephant in the room that they didn't talk about. And that's what the difference in the emphasis on AI in the West versus what China is doing with AI. And they're two different things. And Brian and I were talking about this earlier, because the West is looking to create AGI, artificial general intelligence, believing that once we achieve that, we create this superhuman intelligence that's going to be able to govern humanity, because we're imperfect, and it will, even though it's not perfect, it will, maybe come closer to being perfect and govern. But to be able to create that, and that's what they're striving for in the West. What China has done with AI is they're taking the AI, they're attaching it to robotics, and they're using it to keep up their manufacturing. They're actually making real things and selling those real things to the rest of the world. And that, the big competition between the United States and China geopolitically is who's going to have the greatest influence on the direction the world is going. China is basically making a bet that the world's going to need real things. So they're going to come to us, because we're going to make that stuff, and we're going to use AI to make it. We're betting that the world's going to look for some superhuman intelligence to govern all of us, and that requires a widespread belief in a re-enchantment idea,
right? Which is
pushed through the United Nations and in all the other things that we talk about all the time.
Economic Forum,
right? And so and there's no guarantee they can actually reach it.
Right.
So that's kind of one of the big geopolitical concerns about this, is that when the world is like, okay, you've created the superhuman intelligence to govern us, well, we kind of don't necessarily really want that, but we do want to be able to have things that help us survive, materials, and if China will help us build our factories to build some of those things, or we buy them from them, or however that will work, we might be more inclined to go with them. And then they're going to be the ones that influence the direction of the world for the next 100, 200 years. instead of the West.
So this is a superpower race,
Mm-hmm.
and the vision of how our world will be automated fits in that the clash between two superpowers.
Yeah.
It all sounds like management to me.
Yeah.
It is, but the thing is this, China has more control over all their people.
Right.
And they have all the money coming in, and we were in China. It was unbelievable to see China, and this was a number of years ago, but it was unbelievable to see the giant buildings, the infrastructure they have.
How modern they were.
How modern they were.
Very tech.
Compared to us, like, and we were all over the country. We went so many places, it was unbelievable to see. But the cities were something else. The roadways and everything, it was amazing. They are light years ahead. I hate to say it.
Right.
Their train stations were like football fields. They're that big. And then the trains, they went 320 kilometers an hour up in the air. They're all up on 30 feet up, on 40 feet up on stilts with all cement, and they're electric ones. They hover and they go. And they had speedometer on the end of each car. 325 kilometers an hour, I think, was the fastest that we went. Like, it's unbelievable how modern, and the train stations they have were like, they're like a stadium. They're giant, massive.
Because they can take all of their wealth,
Yeah.
all of their creative energy towards the goals dictated by that political collective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas in the West, we all are allowed to pursue our own.
Right. And the
Our
thing
business
is,
interests.
and I think the mistake that the Chinese are making on that is they're looking at how things are now, and they're seeing how well they have advanced and how we're kind of been in decline, and they think that proves that their authoritarian system run by the Chinese Communist Party is superior to ours. What they're missing is that the West is in decline because it's a cyclical thing. In West now, where we might fail to pull out of the cycle is if we fail to come back to a point where we reestablish our core values as a civilization, and that's the danger
Right.
that we're in. But in terms of just the raw understanding of it, it's not because authoritarianism is better than
No.
democratic republicanism. It's because the democratic republicanism has this tendency to go in cycles, and their system, they will forcefully press against the cycles for centuries until it finally explodes. That's what's happened throughout Chinese history, and then they'll have some major calamity in which their entire system is completely overthrown.
Right.
So, and that might not happen in our lifetimes. Might not happen for another 200 years. But that is where that eventually goes.
The rise of China is partially, because of what America did by farming all their stuff out to them.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So this is where, the United States really shot themselves in the foot, thinking they got a good deal with China, but now China's just as powerful as the States is, right?
And and I showed you all that video. I went to just the simple thing where they had it was a Chinese company that made the robotic dogs
Yes.
and the robotic humanoid, and it's amazing. I mean,
And
we've
you-
seen videos of that.
Yeah, you saw that at the South by Southwest exhibit area.
Yeah, the International Expo.
Yes.
We will go see that tomorrow.
Yes. But yeah, so you saw the robotic dogs.
Yeah.
And it's a Chinese company selling them in the United
In the
States.
United States, and I will tell you what I said. I asked him. I said, well, first he had the human robot. They had already. I didn't get to see that one working because they'd already shut it down. It was cooling off before they put it back in the box. And I said,
This sounds wrong.
I know. And I asked him. I said, well, have you sold a lot of these? He says, yeah. And I said, do you sell them to Chinese companies or American companies? He said, we sold a lot to American companies. And I said, well, like who? And he said, no, I can't tell you that. And I was like, well, like what kind of customers are buying these? And he said, I can't tell you that. Okay. And I was like, okay, well, but he said, but I can tell you that the idea of the humanoid is for the human robot to take over menial tasks so that people can can focus on other things that only people can do. And that was something we heard in another one of the workshops that we were in.
Right.
And so, but the dog, what was interesting about the dog, I had the dog came out, stuck its paw at one time for me to shake his hand, like you have to teach a dog to shake your hand. So I did it. And that dog, even though it's, the size of a collie or something, was so much stronger than a real dog of that size. Like
it shook your head.
yes. Yeah.
So we're talking pit bull strong.
Yeah. So it's like, okay. And he showed me a video of how the dog, they can put, 30, well, for one, the dog is doing these flips, and the dog can never, it doesn't matter if the dog falls, it picks itself up. It's amazing. And it can walk across rough terrain. You can take it hiking with you 3 miles in the woods and put your cooler with all your food on its back. You get 2 of them, put your tent on one, and put your cooler on the other, and have both these dogs walk with you to some remote location. You can set up a solar panel there and charge the dogs while you enjoy being out there in the woods by yourself. And then you can have your dogs, these electronic dogs, haul this stuff back.
Wow.
So, and he said they can use the dogs for security. We could get a dog, put it in our house, and we could train it to be a guard dog in our house, and I'd never have to clean up dog poop.
Which is the priority.
And doesn't shed.
And doesn't shed. Yes,
Benefits.
exactly.
No barking.
No barking.
Shoots
Yep.
electrons, but you can't see them.
Before I forget, back to the first workshop, because that's really, I think, the only one where the 4 of us were together.
Yeah.
One of the things that I wrote down, and again, and I need to go back through a little bit more of the notes, but 3 trillion is coming through philanthropies and foundations into the field of AI, and then the question of putting an ethical structure in place, the conversation that we need to bring civil society to the table. Okay, who are you going to bring to the table? Is that the Rockefeller Foundation?
Elon Musk.
Yeah, exactly.
Peter Thiel.
Faith-based groups. Who's coming to the table now with these funders to bring that moral legitimacy to this development?
Yeah.
But they also said too, they want to bring civil society because then it'll give not only credibility to the project, but also transparency.
That's right.
And what's the other thing?
Yeah. So then you've got actually it's
Transparency and progress. Civil society
yeah.
can see progress,
Yeah.
which then makes it more credible and give it validity
right.
to then for adoption.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Again, I guess the only other thing in terms of the first workshop was I didn't quite catch what they meant by the term sovereign AI, but I heard that phrase at least once.
I heard that a lot when I was watching the World Economic Forum.
Okay.
That means basically if you're the creator,
Yeah.
it's yours.
Okay. So it's not actually giving the AI
Right.
sovereignty.
It's the creator who has sovereignty
Okay.
through whatever you're creating. You are the one that can still operate it, owns it, has recognition for it.
Okay. I'll tell you all quickly one of the workshops I went to, because after we went out that first one, that was when we had the chaos in the hallway.
Yeah.
All trying to get to our next workshops, and it was just like a human maze trying to get through that. With lined up going up and down each of the hallways and almost circling back and all intertwined. So I ended up just going into my app, finding one that was open.
Yeah.
That's all I could do.
That's all you can do.
Yeah, and the one I stumbled onto, and I'm glad I did, was entitled Strategy in Times of Chaos. And it was on the educational side, Jimmy. So again, to your point, it's that cross. Yes, today was that crossover day between the educational component and the innovative component.
Right.
So this was somebody, Lynn Jeffrey, from the Institute for the Future, along with a Stanford professor, talking on how to strategize for the future of secondary education, advanced education, knowing that AI is breaking the mold in terms of what education looks like.
Mm.
And it was all about developing new futures, thinking through what will the new future look like. And they were very clear we need to look at this as a 10-year time frame. Anything beyond that, we can't truly begin to work through what a trend line looks like, what a new future would look like. But we were pretty clear with what we can see in 10 years. So they offered lots of quotes from Alvin Toffler, from his book Future Shock, and talked quite a bit about how education has shifted. It used to be only the elites could afford a master's degree or an advanced degree. Now it's universal. Almost anybody can afford a bachelor's, or at least have access to a bachelor's, access to a master's. And so that has degraded the value of those degrees.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing special about degrees anymore. So now how do you bring value back into this? And that was a big part of the question. So they were talking, they had a 3-stage approach of how to look at futures. Number one, look back, look into the history, examine the past to look for patterns. Hello, that's what we've been doing.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's exactly what we've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we integrate the present by letting go of what they called zombie ideas. So one of their zombie ideas was, you get a good education, it guarantees you a good job. Well, that's an idea from the 70s and 80s and 90s, and that no longer applies. It's a zombie idea now. And so they're like, okay, how do we jettison that, but then find a legitimate replacement?
Mm-hmm.
Something that still gives value. And then the third step is to imagine the future, 10 years out, looking for signals of change on the edges of culture. Hello, when we go to Burning Man, we are on those exact edges of culture.
Mm-hmm.
Austin, Texas, South by Southwest is a petri dish, allowing the edges to ferment constantly. So fascinating. And then they're talking about how we are specifically speaking about the Institute for the Future, specifically using signals of change to understand how new values are being changed. New values are being brought into the picture. They had 4 scenarios for schools for the future, organizing schools and universities around the question of artificial intelligence. First one, these are just scenarios. The first one is for AI proof. And they said we're going to see schools popping up that are AI proof. No AI allowed. None.
Really?
Really.
Yeah.
What we want to do is have a classical education. Here are the books. You got to write out the papers. And it's probably, if the scenario comes to, and you will see probably a few schools that do it, they'll become the new Ivy Leagues. Because all of a sudden,
Yeah. Because the people have to think for themselves,
Right.
and they don't have AI doing all their work for them.
right. And so the second school is AI collaboration. You bring in AI to the point where there's a working with the AI as a tool. And then number 3 is AI adjacent. Let's get good at skills that the AI can't do. And then the 4th scenario is the AI directs the university, which is the route a lot of universities are now looking at.
So they're saying that all 4 of those are going to take
Yes,
shape?
all 4 of those will probably take shape to some degree in the next 10 years. As the university system begins to wrestle with, what do we do with it?
Mm-hmm.
Which approach should we take? Really interesting conversation.
The ones that said what the AI can't do,
Yes.
who's that going to be? The tradesman?
So, yeah, trades.
But if AIs can do
Some
there's
things.
some things they can't do yet.
Right.
Yet.
One of the things, so they were talking about how one of the top, well, actually the number 1 job in America in terms of how many people are employed by this job, the number 1 job is home care and assistant living, to be like, I guess, like nursing assistants, that type of thing for the elderly. And you need humans to do this. But it's also one of the most underpaid jobs, but maybe that becomes the new skill. So some really interesting stuff. The lady from Stanford talked about how AI, she's approaching it from the position of history for the future, trying to understand the past so we grasp the future, so we can imagine what the futures look like. And she's pulling the concept of AI from 3 different streams into her use of artificial intelligence. And that includes ancestral intelligence. We kind of know where that goes. Ancient intelligence and archival intelligence. We bring those 3 streams of what we consider to be unorthodox, especially the first 2, unorthodox ways of approaching knowledge or intelligence. You pull from your ancestors, you pull from your lineage. From certain perspectives, you pull from the spiritual side of that. And then the ancient intelligence, drawing from those ancient models of worldview, integrating that into your AI learning, and then accessing archives through AI so that you can start to reframe basically the human condition, not just simply from the perspective of here's ChatGPT telling you what the future is going to be, but we're going to examine those patterns.
Yeah.
Look back at those patterns, and then integrate them into the present and project the future. So that was a conversation. Talked quite a bit towards the end about how, and I did not know this, how the Black Panther movement had their own school.
Yeah, and free breakfast for kids.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And so they talked all about how we need to kind of emulate the Black Panthers.
Interesting.
Yeah, it was.
They did all kinds of immunizations and like low cost healthcare that went into the neighborhoods because people couldn't afford either healthcare or to get to where there were free healthcare centers.
Okay.
So the Black Panthers mobilized healthcare, food supply, education, and I think even stuff like elderly care
Okay.
that was not at all available to their community in the 60s.
Because, see, that came up. The Black Panthers came up as a model.
Fascinating.
Yeah, I know. And the big takeaway, and they were very clear about this, is that children are not just the parents' responsibility. The whole community has a responsibility to collectively bring the children forward. Because this is all in the context of education.
Right.
Anyways, that was the takeaway. Some of the stuff I pulled, and there's more stuff. I got pages more from their talk, but I'll shut up.
You were talking about messaging, and I'm not bringing this into the conversation, but you were talking about messaging, and when you made your 3 points there about the ancients and that, I hear that messaging through the psychedelic movement.
Oh yeah, that's there, absolutely.
Yeah, so the medicine, right, the indigenous cultures with the medicine, right, and how it's the ancestors who brought it forward, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
So it's interesting again because I'm all about messaging every time we go, and I always connect all these messaging dots. And so as you were talking about that, I just kept going back to psychedelics,
Psychedelics. Yep.
Yeah.
Quickly before I forget, the question arose: what should be the primary goal of education, especially in light of these future changes? And schools have to center now their educational goals in these 3 primary points. What is your identity? What is your purpose? What is your direction? Identity, purpose, direction. Nothing to do with education.
Right.
Nothing to do
Those
with the
are-
classical understanding of education.
Those are philosophical and spiritual ideas.
100%. These are change agents.
Identity, what was it?
Identity, purpose, direction.
Identity purposes. Change agent. Those are change agents.
That's, yes.
Wow.
All right. I'll shut up. I'll move it over.
There's a point that brought up, so they're talking about elder care
Yeah.
and all this stuff. Well, in Canada, they got that solved.
Yeah, we made them.
We just put them to sleep like dogs, right?
Yeah.
Like, this is the problem. Like,
I
do
know.
they have that in the States at all?
I think in Oregon only, right?
Or, okay, one
George?
state so far.
What? The
Assisted
Medical
suicide.
assistance dying.
suicide? Is it legal in Oregon?
I think limited.
Because they are pushing it like crazy. Canada. Like they have killed how many? They just celebrated a number the other.
Yeah, we're
last week.
actually,
What is it? 1 million or
no, 100,000. We've hit the 100,000 mark. I think MAID is now the 4th or 3rd leading cause of death in Canada.
Wow.
Yeah,
Medical
they are
assisted.
Medical assistant dying.
Suicide.
Yeah, euthanasia. It's euthanasia.
Put you to sleep like a puppy,
Yeah.
unwanted puppy.
Yeah.
When you brought up the healthcare or the elderly care and that, did they bring up wearables?
No, they didn't talk about
That's
wearables.
interesting, actually.
Yeah.
AI and wearables.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. All right, that's the talk I went to on my own. So tell me a little bit about your talks that you guys went to that were different than mine.
Okay, I hope you found that interesting and helpful. Please stay tuned for more to come.